880,000 words, 154 sonnets, 64 violent deaths, 37 plays, 15 comedies, 12 tragedies, 10 histories, 8 4 or 2 weeks practical training. Just a few miles from where Shakespeare lived and worked in London, at the #1 drama school in the UK for student satisfaction, Lange, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art.
Join their Shakespeare Summer School, and you'll train at the oldest drama school in the UK, with a faculty who have helped Lambda grads win 4 Oscars, 16 Golden Globes, 20 BAFTAs, 12 Tonys, and 36 Olivier Awards. Their 8-week course will also earn you college credit. Apply now at lambda.ac.uk.
It's very liberating. I'm not trying to figure things out. It really is about the intuition, the emotional life that just seems to kind of reveal itself in some odd way. I don't mean to make this sound like hocus pocus kind of stuff, but there's a lot less thought and much more emotion involved.
Welcome, everyone, to In the Envelope, the Actors Podcast, where the biggest names in film, television, and theater help craft a complete guide to the creative life. I am your host, Backstage Senior Editor, Vinnie Mancuso, and I am thrilled to be joined today by someone who probably needs no introduction, but we're going to give her one anyway, the legend herself, Jessica Lange. Whether you know her from 4 seasons of American Horror Story, her performances in films like Tootsie, Cape Fear, or The Postman Always Rings Twice, or her time on stage playing iconic characters like Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire, Mary Tyrone in A Long Day's Journey into Night, the bottom line is this: Jessica is a 2-time Oscar winner, 3-time Emmy winner, a Tony winner, and a SAG winner. It is a resume for the ages, and we are speaking to Jessica today after she picked up her 2nd Tony nomination for Paula Vogel's Mother play. In it, Jessica plays Phyllis, an alcoholic single mother wrestling with her regrets across 4 decades of raising 2 kids. Her son, Carl, played of course by Jim Parsons, and daughter, Martha, played by Celia Keenan Bolger, both also nominated for a Tony, by the way. It is a wonderful chat with one of the greatest to ever do it. Let's get right into it. Here is Jessica Lange. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. It is a pleasure to meet you. I cannot wait to talk to you. You're simply a legend.
Oh, well, thank you.
Of course. I saw Mother play.
Oh, you did?
Last week, the same day that you got a Tony nomination for it, actually.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
I think the audience felt the little oomph in the performance. I can't wait to talk about it. I do want to just ask, because I ask this, whenever we talk to people who are on Broadway. You have a show tonight.
Yes, I do.
I'm always curious how you sort of compartmentalize your life, the stuff going on in the show, especially if you have 2 shows a day. How do you sort of separate, because you just told me, we were speaking before, I'm not the only person you're talking to today. I'm not the only interview you're doing today. How do you separate that from the great thing?
It's strange because you always think, oh, a play. Yeah, I can do a play. It's like every evening. That's you have all the day to yourself. You imagine that you're going to have a real life outside of the play, and it never turns out that way, because everything from the time you wake up is gearing toward, getting to the theater and doing the play. So it feels to me like even though you're only in the theater for maybe 3-4 hours every day, except on matinee days, everything is in preparation for that. So I love doing it. I love doing theater, but it's never as easy as I think it's going to be when I sign on.
It always sounds good on the day one.
Yeah,
like, oh,
right.
What an opportunity.
Yeah.
Has the way that you prepare day of changed at all? Or do you find that it's similar to back when you were,
Well, I mean, again, it's probably changed from the first time. I mean, the first time I did theater, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I said yes because I always wanted to play Blanche Dubois.
Mhm.
And I was so naive about it that it became far more difficult than it probably had to be. So I guess over time, you get used to it. Maybe it does get, I don't want to say easier, but you get more accustomed to the schedule and to the rigor of doing, 8 shows a week. But it's still all encompassing. It becomes what your life is about for those 3 months or whatever.
So I can't wait to talk about Mother Play, which is an incredible show, an incredible performance by you. But I do kind of want to, go back and sort of chart, you've had such an incredible career, the things that got you here. And I want to go back. I don't know if this is your first time doing theater. You're early, but I do believe early on you did the melodrama Love Rides the Rails.
Oh my God. Oh, I barely remember that.
I was going to ask what you remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it must have been regional theater or something. That goes way back.
Way back. I'm
Yeah.
curious, this was before you even thought of acting as a viable thing. This was before Paris, before you came back to New York. So I'm curious, even if you don't quite remember what the experience was like, what were your earliest experiences of acting like? Were you sort of just feeling it out? Were you just sort of, seeing what it was?
The acting actually came out of returning from Paris after studying mime. And I had studied with the great old master, Etienne Ducroux. And I'd studied with him for several years. And then for personal reasons, came back to New York and found that I didn't know really what to do next. And it seemed like a logical step to try acting classes. So I was working as a waitress downtown at the Lion's Head and signed up for classes, first at Herbert Berghoff Studios and then later different acting teachers. But suddenly it felt to me like it all kind of came together, that maybe this is something that I should try. I was meant to try, meant to do. And then it just, I always imagined, well, okay, a young, New York struggling actor, you'll not maybe get a showcase piece, theater, or maybe off Broadway, or go out of town for some regional theater, do something like that. And then the next thing I know, I was flown out to Hollywood to audition for King Kong. So that blew all my plans out of the water.
King Kong kind of interrupted things a bit.
Yes.
You mentioned you took scene study with Herbert Berghoff.
Yes.
Is there anything besides the pivot to acting? Is there anything sort of tangible or anything, a specific lesson from those early classes that has helped you? I know you're not a big process person. You're not a big studying the exact things of a scene. You sort of rely on a lot of emotion and instinct. But is there anything tangible from those early lessons that has stayed a through line, throughout your career?
Well, certainly. I mean, when I started working with this wonderful teacher, Sandra Seacat, and working on a lot of the Strasberg method, a lot of that has stayed with me over time. In the beginning, I found that those exercises and the methods that he taught helped me into it. And then after time, I relied more and more on intuition, instinct, just personal experiences. But in the beginning, I would say the most important kind of lessons I had were from working with Sandra Seacat on a lot of Strasberg method.
I just want to sort of chart some of my favorite moments of your career, in terms of like specific acting moments. And I think one of my favorite, I've been rewatching a lot of your movies, a lot of your stuff. And a small moment that I really love is in the movie Francis.
Uh, yeah.
It's the very end, when Sam says to Francis, will you always look like $1,000,000? And there's just a long pause. The whole weight of the film is in that pause. There's a lot in that pause, and I feel like if you're an actor, go look at that pause because it's a masterclass in itself. So I do want to act, not even just sort of that specific moment, but in moments where, especially on camera moments, where it calls for to say a lot with nothing, to say a lot with a pause. How is that something that what you do as an actor gets to that point?
Well, now in the play, this is
Mm-hmm.
the kind of penultimate experience of that I have this sequence where I enter the apartment alone at
Yes.
night, and it lasts maybe 10, 12 minutes of just a woman alone in an apartment. And what is that behavior? What is that emotional life? What story are we telling? So I think the idea of like playing the silence is really interesting because it can be, you can fill it with so much. Like, for instance, in that evening at home in the play, I could go on and on and on and on and bore people to death, but it's really,
I
is.
I don't think they would be. I'd love to hear you go on and on and on.
It really is a fascinating experiment and a fascinating discipline to do that on stage and fill that time and somehow reveal or expose this woman's emotional life. It's a great exercise.
I think they sent me the script for Mother Play, and I think the way it's described is, she sits for far longer than we are used to watching people sit.
Yeah.
Which is a really great way to describe it.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was going to work, but it seems to, it seems to hold the audience's attention. Maybe they're waiting for something to happen. I don't know. Nothing really happens in that sequence, but it's a wonderful exercise as an actor to try to fill that space and time with something that's recognizable emotionally to the audience.
I'm curious about, charting out that exercise for you. What did that start as in its purest form? You're doing rehearsals, and how do you as the actor sort of figure out where to fill it with something, where to fill it with nothing? Like how does that become what it is now on the stage?
Well, obviously there was the blueprint, that Paula had written and that Tina was orchestrating, dealing with the silence of an empty apartment, dealing with what do you do to fill that silence. The other aspect, of course, that's very important is this is a woman who drinks and who is waiting for whatever limits or time she's put as markers. She's waiting until she can have her first drink, self-imposed. So it's the idea of filling time. And I think part of the thing that works is so many people identify with that kind of loneliness. There isn't, I've read, an epidemic of loneliness in this country, especially among young and older people. So it's easy to identify with something like that if you have experienced that kind of loneliness in your life. And it was a wonderful, for me as an actor, to explore it and to find exactly what it was that conveyed that most powerfully.
Because it's something that you're doing, 5 times a week or however many times. How is
8.
it sort of 8 times a week? Yeah, sorry, I don't want to undersell what you're doing. How is it sort of, especially this moment where, to be clear for people who haven't seen the show, it is a lengthy stretch, where you're just existing on screen. It's wordless, as you said. Are you still sort of playing with it? You know, is it something that you're still finding new ways to fill that space? I am just so interested in the idea of filling that space in engaging ways, and so it's something you do so
Yeah, I
beautifully.
mean, that's the great thing about theater, because it's it's a movable feast.
Mhm.
Every night you find something new, especially in a well-written play. You never, I mean, I felt that very strongly always when I was doing Long Day's Journey and Tonight, which I've now
Mhm.
done on 3 different occasions, is that you never get to the bottom of that well that is Mary Tyrone. I mean, I could play that part for the rest of my life and never exhaust the possibilities.
Absolutely.
So, and with this piece, with this sequence, yeah, it's filled with a different emotional life, basically, every night. Some moments are I feel more profoundly than other moments, but it has the structure, and then on that structure is hung all the history, all the emotion, all the regrets, the remorse, the sorrow, the loneliness.
I mentioned I saw the show last week, and the byproduct of Broadway audiences and stuff. I'm always so interested in the way that audiences will, when it's somebody they recognize, they cheer when they first appear. I'm curious if you remember the first time an audience cheered for your first appearance.
I honestly don't. I mean, this is unique, but it's also a very unique entrance. So
Yes,
I
it's a
think
great
that,
entrance.
yeah, I think that adds a great deal to the reveal of the character.
I'm curious how, your relationship to that, because as I mentioned, this is an incredible performance, and the applause is well deserved. Because you hear people talk about that safety net of, people are going to enjoy it because they enjoy you. Is there a safety net? How do you stay engaged with this challenging material even now?
Well, you just have to, I think you really have to just commit to it and believe in it. And
Mhm.
you can't second guess. I mean, there are things in the play that, I mean, are difficult for me
Mhm.
to say, but not for her. So you have to make that leap. I mean, there are decisions that this character has made that I would never in my life make. But you can't temper the character by your own morality or whatever. You just have to commit to it. And even if it's difficult, which she's a very difficult character, you can't hold back. You can't pull back out of safety
Mhm.
because, you don't want to be. I mean, I think that's a problem sometimes with female actors, is that there's a certain, I wouldn't say requirement, but to make them likable,
Mhm.
And I don't think, because you can have a lot of men hero, right? Leading men who are not likable characters.
Mhm.
It's much harder with an actress. So this was a great challenge too, because to play somebody who really makes horrible decisions in life, you just have to commit to it and embrace it and be that person for those 2 hours on stage or whatever. You can't separate yourself and pass judgment or any kind of, qualitative, appraisement of the character. Just have to do it.
Yeah, I do love that about the show, is that it really it takes no, as you mentioned, no pains to be like, but to be clear, she's likable. There's no moment.
No.
And which is, I'm curious. You mentioned you just kind of have to do it for that time that you're on stage. What is the immediate, like I'm talking like right when the curtain closes, what is the immediate sort of, come down for you from doing a show like this? What is the sort of, because I think I've seen actors say, and I think I've seen you say that, the mind knows that it's acting, that it's acting, but the body doesn't quite
No,
understand
the
that it's
body
acting.
never knows.
Yeah. So I'm curious what the immediate aftermath is of a show like Mother Play.
Well, I mean, I've got Celia and Jim there. So it's
Hmm.
always, we always ride up in the elevator together. There's a great sense of camaraderie and love between us, that we've taken this journey together, because it's not an easy journey for any of the three characters. And I think that makes all the difference, that we have this sense of accomplishing something, having gone through something every night, but we've done it together.
I'm always curious between the difference between, film, television, theater, in the theater, living with a character, creating a character, especially in this case where you're creating the character. What is the difference between living with a character over the course of a film, which is, a very finite amount of time, versus maybe something like American Horror Story or TV where you're living with it? Is there a difference in theater where you're living with the character, but you're saying and doing the same scene night after night?
Well, yeah, there's a difference between, because with film, you finish something, you move on. You finish something, you move on. Obvious, that's the most obvious. With this, you keep returning to it day after day after day after day. And to find the life and the energy in that and keep it, to keep it new and fresh for the audience. And that's what I love about theater. And also because you have no safety net in theater. It's not like you can screw up your line and then say, wait, can we go back? Can I do another take? I'd like to, try that again. You just have to wind your way through whatever mistake you made and figure out how to get to the other side of it. And there's just something that I still find so thrilling about doing theater.
I'd love to know whether you've adopted a specific way of winding your way through a mistake like that. That to me, as someone who has no experience in theater, it feels like the wildest thing about theater is that, like you said, you make a mistake and you just got to keep going. You just kind of got to get over that hurdle. Have you sort of developed a way of getting back on track?
Yeah. We've all done that a few times so far in this run where we've kind of, especially me, probably because I'm so much older than they are, but where I've come to an absolute stop and thought, I don't know what the next moment is. And sometimes if you sit there for a moment and kind of just gather yourself, it'll come to you. One time Celia had to actually feed me the line, and then I got right back on track, of course. But it is, that's what makes it so exciting. You just find your way, I've done things with props that I dropped a whole deck of cards all over the floor, actually during that, the silent sequence. And I thought, there was a moment where I thought, I'd just leave them. And then I thought, no, this is real. Okay. So then that became part of the thing. I picked up all the cards and put them, but there's your mind's playing with you for a second there. What is the reality of this moment? Inside the scene, she would pick up the cards. Me as an actor on stage thought, oh, fuck, I just dropped all the cards. God damn it. Now what am I going to do? But I don't know. I think in those moments like that, intuition and instinct, you have to rely on that to come to the fore and save you.
It's part of that reality of theater because you did drop the cards. that did happen. So that is now part of it. It is very unique, the world of theater. I do want to ask about another specific moment from the show, which is it's you on a phone. Hello, Mr. Montgomery. And I believe it's described in the script, like I said, as it's just a change in posture and lighting, and that's a very simple way to describe what it is that you're really running through a bunch of conversations in rapid time, and time is demonstrated by a change in posture and lighting. So, as an actor, you read the script and all it says is a change in posture and lighting. What's the process then of making that so physically dynamic and, telling the audience what they need to know through it's just bang, 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 a change in posture and lighting? Well,
because you infuse the emotional life into it. This is a woman who is in each subsequent phone call getting angrier and angrier. because nothing has been done. So as soon as you recognize that and establish that, then everything else falls into place. The physical is always determined by the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once, as we got into rehearsal and, the whole discovery process, then suddenly, everything starts to make sense, especially with the physical.
Mm-hmm.
What's challenging in this play is that there's no time off stage, really, often. So you have these lightning quick changes between a moment where, for instance, I've just discovered that my son has AIDS and I'm devastated. And it's a very emotional scene. Like high pitch emotion. Within a matter of moments, I have to switch because I don't even exit stage. They just change the lighting and it comes up on me saying, sit down, Martha. And now I'm like in a completely different mindset, a completely different emotional state. So those, and I've got several, we all do have some of those in this play. And it's been incredibly exciting to explore, getting from one extreme emotion to another within a matter of moments.
I was going to ask if there's any way to put into words what is happening in that switch. For you as an actor, it is, like you mentioned, a second. It's a change of lighting.
Yeah.
What is actually happening in that for you? Or is it just pure? The light's on me. I have to go.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's pure adrenaline. It's really just like that fight or flight instinct. You just, okay, this is where this scene ends, this scene starts. There's no time to kind of prepare or anything. You just have to be in it. And like I said, that's been extremely challenging and rewarding at the same time.
Is there a particular smaller moment or any moment from Mother Play that is, this show's still going on as we speak, that continues to, surprise you, or you're finding yourself plays a bit different each night?
Oh, yeah. A lot of it. It's a movable feast. But again, that to me is what's thrilling about theater, is that it's never the same.
Mm-hmm.
And you never want it to be exactly the same, because then it's just by rote or it's mechanical or you've made decisions, but everything's moving in the moment.
Something and this is just from me sitting in the audience, so maybe it doesn't affect you at all, but I can't help but notice that, at least when I'm there, there's a lot of audience noise. There's a lot of noise from the audience, I think coughing, shuffling, stuff like that. As somebody who is easily distracted myself, I'm always curious. In theater, we've spoken a lot about the sort of live nature of theater and it being. What role does the audience a few feet away from you play in that?
Well, you have to be aware of them, yeah, because obviously there's their laughter, and that again, depending on the night and the makeup of the audience, they find more humor, less humor. You hear people crying, you hear people sighing, and all of that feeds into it. I think these have been some of the quieter Broadway audiences I've experienced. They actually seem to be trying to be quiet, I guess is what I'm saying.
That's fair.
Is they're making an effort, at least, not to shuffle, not to drop their drinks, not to, Yeah, and a lot of them, I've only heard a phone once or twice, which is kind of amazing. Yeah.
As we sort of, wrap up here and get to, I just want to ask in more general terms, I mentioned that I've been going back and watching a lot of your career, and it's such a wide, varied career. It's just a eclectic, incredible career. I'm curious, when people come up to you and they say this or that is my favorite performance, is there one that particularly surprises you?
I'm still amazed when people like mention King Kong to me. I think, Jesus Christ, that's like 40 some years ago already. I mean, come on. You can't really remember. And plus, there have been so many remakes. But no, it's great. Sometimes you hear somebody say, oh, Francis, when I saw that. I mean, and so that is extremely rewarding that somebody all of these years later still remembers the impact that that story had.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of amazed that people remember as much as they do.
I'm also curious what you're not on social media. You avoid all of that stuff.
I do.
And I think that is a great decision. But I'm always curious if you're ever aware, if you have any relationship to when something from a performance sort of transcends the piece itself. I'm thinking specifically, and this is something that happens a lot with something like American Horror Story. You know, there's a lot of line readings. There's stuff like, you know, there's not going to be a swimming pool, you stupid slut, which sort of became something that went beyond the show.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand that. But
okay, I was going to ask if you have any relationship to
none,
you know,
none whatsoever. But somebody else mentioned that same line to me one time. I thought, God, I don't even remember when that was. Franny Conroy, I guess. That was some scene we had together. But yeah, I'm always amazed.
And so as we look back on, you know, where you are with Mother Play, I just want to make it clear to everyone listening that if it's still playing, go see it. It's a really remarkable show with a remarkable performance at its center. When you think about this new challenge that you're doing, in what way is it sort of, you know, are you taking everything that you've learned over the past however many decades into Mother Play? Yes, into Mother Play specifically.
Well, you do. I mean, it's cumulative. You know, your knowledge or your experience, and I felt in the last couple projects that I've done that there's a freedom that I've never felt before, a kind of abandon that I don't even know how to explain it really, except that it's very liberating. You know, I'm not trying to figure things out. It really is about the intuition, the instinct, the emotional life that just seems to kind of reveal itself in some odd way. I don't need to make this sound like hocus pocus kind of stuff, but there's a lot less thought and just much more emotion involved. And the danger of like overthinking something, especially as an actor, you can always see that when you're watching something, you know, that it's a mental exercise. I feel like now I've gotten to a point where I can just give into it and let it take me wherever it's going.
Absolutely. I think that was very well explained. It was very closely put, and it's a good place for us to sort of wrap up here. Jessica, again, thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we'll speak to you again down the road.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, as always, to our brilliant producer, Jamie Muffett, and to the whole team at Backstage. Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Kasey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage with code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. 100% free, you simply cannot beat that. For more exclusive content, find us on Facebook and Twitter at In The Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who should we interview next? Let us know. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another peek in the envelope.